The following program paid for by Rosenberg Financial Group. Providing live finance advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Sherri Goss and Randy Goss. To participate in today's program, call 478-742-0940 with your financial questions and comments. And now, live from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia. And welcome to Your Money. Randy and Sherri Goss are here with Rosenberg Financial Group, and the main thing we do as financial advisors is provide retirement planning. And we got a buzz in the background, in the back of my head. Oop, now
that's
so
gone.
Good. Yay!
I thought it was just in my own head.
So we provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com, where you can read a number of special reports and listen to recordings of past radio shows. The number to call in today is 478-742-0940, and we are here to take your calls. So we missed a call last week. We had a caller at the very end of the show, and somebody else was on hold. And so give us a call this week and let us know what was on your mind.
There you go.
Good.
Good morning, everybody. Let's do a little market update here. The Dow closed at 31,338 this last week, and it was still down 14% year to date. The S&P is still down 19% year to date and closed at 38.99. And the NASDAQ is down a whopping 26%, closing at 11,635. And as we all know, we're at the beginning of a new quarter, but the markets are facing the same old headwinds that we've been talking about for a long time. The continued push and pull from the same themes persist, but we're going to have to keep an eye on them this week. Plus, now we have the potential for labor slowdowns or strikes with dock workers and railroad unions on the West Coast. And we talked about that about a couple of months ago, and we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. Inflation fears remain prominent even as analysts try to figure out and find evidence of a peak to justify their positions. Financial and political talking heads are trying to calm investors by saying that the consumer and the economy are in good shape. However, it's tough to tell mom and dad that things are improving when too many people spend $100 or more for barely enough groceries to get them through just a few days. Spending is low in certain areas, especially now that the government subsidy checks are not coming in. That is, unless you live in California. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. Consumer savings are being depleted, and credit card debt is growing. The question is, what is back to school and the holiday season going to look like? And I would say it's probably not new clothes and backpacks for a lot of kids. But, you know, if you're a bargain shopper, I bet you can still find some good stuff.
Walmart is packed with stuff.
Walmart.
Amazon,
TJ Maxx and Ross as well, you know, the bargain stores.
And I was on the Walmart website last night looking at school supplies just because I was curious, and they're dirt cheap, like cheaper than,
that's good.
I think it's cheaper than what we paid for our kids. And I think what they're doing is they're cutting the prices and doing volume sales to get people to come to the store because they know that they'll buy other stuff while they're in there, which is a good strategy.
Yep. All in all, it's been a terrible first half of the year for equities, and what the next 6 months is going to bring is probably anyone's guess. This past week, we were constantly reading of companies' price targets that were being downgraded many times by double and triple digits. The downside to this is that those who have purchased late last year may be sitting on overvalued stocks. The upside to this mass reevaluation of prices and earnings is that the markets may adjust to the new market norms quicker than they had if they waited for each individual earnings report. Regardless, exercise caution and expect volatility. Late this past week, the European equities indexes were up across the board, including the UK, where the embattled Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be resigning his post. And I expect that's going to create some volatility there as they keep going through the gyrations of that. After surviving a non-confidence vote last month, Johnson will be stepping down from his position after nearly 40 ministers resigned in protest. And I have to just ask this, Sherri, how bad of a leader do you have to be to have 40 of your key people walk off the job?
It's extremely political. It started when they caught him during COVID at a party, and someone took a picture of him with he had his mask off because everybody was drinking, and he had his mask off because it was a party and everybody was drinking and eating, and that threw him under the bus. And then he continued to do those same things over and over, and that's where he's been in the news for the last year of people being enraged that he wasn't wearing a mask and that he was at a party when everybody else was shut down.
Wow.
That's when he kind of should have, he should have woke up.
Yeah, as a leader, you probably should have taken a step back and reevaluated what you're doing. Well, anyway, let's hope the successor is as friendly to the U.S. As Boris was and equally firm with Russia. The tech sector, primarily chips, got a boost this week based on comments from Samsung, who sees the second quarter 2022 operating profits coming in at 14 trillion won, or about 10.7 billion. Now that's a year-over-year increase of about 11%, and their net operating profits were down slightly, I guess, but they were still overall they beat expectations. Let's see here. We can only hope that they continue. Let's see, Taiwan Semiconductor beat their expectations on earnings, but Micron missed, so you've got kind of a mixed bag there. But overall, the chip market may be on the rebound.
And it depends on the chip and what it's for.
That's right.
Because they're all different variants.
If it's for consumer use, that market is down. But if it's for the cloud computing and the big servers, that sector is up. Anyway, so what's the Fed up to these days? The Federal Reserve policy tightening remains a key headwind for the markets. Recent Fed speak continues to call for a 0.75 basis or 75 basis point move in July, and the markets may have already priced this in, but you might see a little bit of market movement accordingly. Expectations were solidified for a 75 basis point rate at the July Fed meeting. The June meeting minutes also revealed that the Fed reduced the GDP expectations for the second half of 2022 and a full year for 2023. But it also expects the labor market to be very tight. Some analysts are beginning to see the effects of the Fed's actions taking hold, and it might be by their fingernails, but nonetheless, prices in fuel, groceries are beginning to moderate. The one area that's causing inflation to continue to run hot is the labor market. The employment is still super red hot, and until the I quit drops, we could expect to see some
the quits rate.
Excuse me. To expect to see some moderate to high inflation numbers. High employment keeps the economy buzzing. The high employment keeps the economy buzzing along despite the higher rates. But let's see here. From the Fed, the labor market is still showing better strength, better than expected non-farm payrolls for June, with 372,000 jobs added versus 250,000. And they revised April and May down by 74,000. Average hour earnings were up a tick higher at 5.1, and this means that more rate hikes and a recession is unlikely by some pundits. So anyway, there's your market update, and
you look frazzled.
I feel like just throwing it in the garbage.
So the U.S. economy is expected to continue to grow this year, even as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates sharply to bring down high inflation. St. Louis Fed President James Bullard said this on Thursday. The U.S. Central Bank's monetary policy tightening, along with inflation running at more than 3 times the Fed's 2% target, has stoked fears of a recession, and many economists estimate the most widely cited measure of U.S. economic output, GDP, may have shrunk for a second straight quarter in the April to June period. Bullard, in slides prepared for a speech at the Little prepared for a speech,
I'm rubbing off
not
on
a
you.
peach, at the Little Rock Regional Chamber in Arkansas, pushed back on that narrative, pointing to an alternative measure known as the gross domestic income that shows the economy is actually expanding. So he says at this point it appears the GDI measure is more consistent with observed labor markets, suggesting the economy continues to grow. So here's the problem. You've got experts, and they're conflicting with each other. When we came out of 08 and 09, you didn't have this. You had one voice that was very calm, saying, here's what we're doing, here's how this is going to work. And now you've got people that are saying the opposite things of each other, and they're all the guy.
Well, when they start using different metrics in midstream, it makes it very difficult to understand what's really going on.
Right.
But, earlier I mentioned California. They're just wrong-headed, according to this article. It says California's inflation relief checks are wrong-headed. The year-over-year increase in the Consumer Price Index recently reached 8.6. That's the highest level since December of 1981. And yet California thinks we should put out the biggest inflation fire in more than 4 decades with more gasoline. By gasoline, they mean state officials have believed that they should put more money into circulation. You see, California Governor Gavin Newsom just came to a budget agreement, and in short, the state plans to give another $1,050 in inflation relief stimulus to millions of eligible residents. These inflation relief checks will total $9.5 billion overall. And that's not all. Newsom and other officials explained in the statement the package will also include a suspension of the state gas tax on diesel and additional funds to help people pay their rent and utility bills. The sad thing is that California had a chance to do a great job and fight inflation. Instead, it chose a loud political win. And in doing that, it will make the current inflation fire seem even worse. First, California deserves some credit. The state ran a record-setting $97 billion budget surplus over the previous year.
That's because
great.
they raised taxes on all the technology companies by 10%.
That's right.
Which is why companies are leaving.
That's right. So it makes sense that the state's politicians want to put some of that money to work. And handing out checks to millions of folks sure sounds like a good political move. People will likely put that $1,050 to good use.
Lottery tickets.
Lottery tickets, right.
Buffets.
Right. You see, inflation is the idea that the dollar buys less goods than it did in the past. For example, you used to get some eggs and a loaf of bread at the grocery store for about $5. But anyone who's gone to the store recently knows that that's just not the case anymore. Inflation happens when there are too many dollars in the economy. When dollars are so easy to come by, each one is worth less. And in turn, that means you need more dollars to buy the same thing you did previously, which we probably all see every day right now. In other words, adding more money to the supply chain, like California is doing with its inflation relief checks, will just make every dollar worth even less. Instead of using part of the $97 billion surplus for these inflation relief checks, California should have kept it completely out of supply.
This is the problem we're having nationwide, and
That's
I can't
right.
believe they can't see that we already have a problem, and now they're making it worse in their state by what they're doing.
I guess they don't have any economists on their boards. Anyway, that's exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing by raising interest rates. The Fed is raising rates so people borrow less. It's also incentivizing people to put their money into savings accounts. In other words, it's stopping people from adding to the money supply, and it's encouraging folks to take money out of the money supply. But California is doing the opposite. It's pouring more gasoline onto the inflation fire, and it's going to make things more expensive for the working class. That's true even if it helps some people in the short term. So what should Californians do? Well, this author says in 2021, data provider Statista shows that California had about $144 billion in debt, but it also ran that $97 billion in budget surplus. You might think, obviously, the state should pay down its debt, but in today's environment, that would be likely result in more money entering the economy. It's the same gasoline on the fire problem. It might seem crazy, but the best thing that the state could have done is nothing. California could put the money into a savings account, then it would earn enough interest to pay a decent amount they could apply to the debt later on. In turn, it would keep the state's debt level from rising much, and it wouldn't put the money back into the economy. So what they're doing is just ludicrous.
And you give everybody more stimulus, and everybody goes out and buys stuff, which creates more shortages because more people are buying stuff.
Yep.
And I would love to know what people spend that money on.
I would too.
Because I remember when the first stimulus check went out, you were headed to the lake and you had to stop in Walmart for something at Milledgeville, and you said almost every other cart had a flat screen television in it.
Right.
So, just because people don't have money doesn't mean by giving them more they're going to use it on the right things. They're going to spend it on what they want right now because that's why they don't have any money. It's just a circle. You can't fix somebody's spending habits by throwing money at them. It does not work, which is why my dad never gave us money, because then you learn that you have to suck it up and deal with not having any money, and you better go make some yourself so that you can survive out there.
I love how my parents did it. They gave me an allowance based on the chores that I did, so it really wasn't an allowance. So I cut the grass, I made some money, things like that. But they didn't mind helping with the school clothing, but they said, we're going to buy you X, Y, and Z. And if you want ABC, you've got to pay the difference. Yeah, Polo. You pay the difference. or if you want 3 pair of pants instead of 2, it's on you. And it's amazing how it changed my idea of what I really needed.
Right. That's how. That's what needs to be happening with these young kids. They have no concept. Oh, they've got another ant.
We're covered up in ants today.
I don't know what's going on with this.
Anyway,
so let me get this. I'll do this next one.
All right.
No relief for retail as port congestion and potential railroad worker strike looms. The retail industry could see another supply chain headache down the back half of the year and into the holidays as rail congestion at West Coast ports remain elevated and labor issues are unresolved. Berkshire Hathaway subsidy, BNSF, and Union Pacific are both reported to be seeing slowdowns in loading freight at West Coast ports. This has been a problem from day one. Retailers are adjusting on the individual basis when they can by sending more freight to the East Coast, including the Port of Norfolk and the Port of Savannah. So we are going to be the benefactor, but get ready for I-16 to be slam-packed with all these trucks loading all of this stuff and having to distribute it through all these other channels.
And if you're not paying attention, I mean, just take a look at the number of heavy trucks that are cruising up and down 16 and 75 now. It is... I'd love to know the numbers between today and, say, 2 or 3 years ago.
And the other thing is they get off 16 onto I-96 and go through Bonaire.
Right.
And so that's congested some nights. I mean, it's clogged with trucks. And I had an article about trucks and the numbers.
Is it the very... Oh.
I don't see it.
Yep.
Anyways, so we're going to benefit from this. The Port of Savannah is one of the most efficient ports in North America, and after deepening it, they're really doing a good job, and it's all IT, and that's what they say is wrong with the ports on the West Coast, is there's no IT. It's still old school, and so they just can't move stuff as fast. There's also another wild card in the mix with Class 1 freight railroads and 12 different rail unions still embroiled in a labor dispute that started in 2020 and is currently in a 30-day cooling-off period. The National Mediation Board scheduled a public interest meeting on July 12th to continue the effort to avoid what would be a devastating strike by rail workers down the road. Some of the biggest importers of freight via ocean transport are Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ashley Furniture, Dole Foods, Samsung America, Dollar Tree, Chiquita Brands, and Nike. So they're struggling to get their product into the stores, and entire stores like Walmart and Target are struggling, period.
I'm just glad to see that the International Longshore and the Warehouse Union have not walked off the job sooner.
Right.
Can you imagine having them walk off the job?
Nightmare.
You know how backed up it was during COVID out there in the port. Imagine what it would be if it was a protracted strike. It could get really bad. So
I had an email from a listener a couple weeks ago, and I'm finally getting around to it because we did that patriotic show last week. But anyway, so he emailed me and says he is having a really hard time with the changes that the Thrift Savings Plan has made. And here's the deal that really hurt him. He says, my largest complaint is the recalculation of my RMD calculated by the new TSP vendor on 5/26/22. In May, shorts me just under $1,000 a month until December, when I get several thousand extra to meet the RMD. I want the even monthly payments because they are the least risky way to distribute the RMD. There's nothing you can do about it until the website stops crashing or the phones start to answer. I wrote he called and called and called and couldn't get through to anybody about what the heck. And I don't understand how this new company recalculated people's RMDs and just start sending them less money. Mid-year. They recalculated them based on the May 26th value of the account, which the account's down because the market is down.
That goes against IRS rules.
Right. That's why they're going to have to make it up at the end of the year. They're going to have to give them the rest of the money at the end of the year. But think about somebody who's living off of that.
Right.
And that's the only income they have. And so this is crazy. I'm surprised we haven't had more calls about this. Anyways. One question I have is related to the new C and the S fund costs, which are 7.6 basis points. So somehow the price of those funds have gone up, according to him. I can roll over the TSB into a brokerage IRA account to some other firm for as little as 3 basis points. What do you think about that? And then he sent me the letters that he got from TSP that show the new payment date, the new payment amount, and that this was real, that this actually happened to him. And so he called his congressman, and then he says, let me see here, where's the, I don't know, I'm sounding disorganized. There's too many pages. So then he says, Sherri, I received a call from TSP while shopping at Kroger. Bradley at the TSP asked what I would like. I said I would like 6 even monthly payments for the remainder of my RMD due this year. Bradley said no problem. He said it would take a few days to set up, and he could call in a few days, and he would call in a few days to confirm the numbers. I asked, why did you call? Bradley replied, it was a congressional request. Don't you just love congressmen? P.S. I did complain that 2 million older retirees are probably having a lot of problems. Bradley replied, I wish it was only 2 million. I suggest TSP retirees call or write their congressman if they're having a problem. Is that insane?
That is.
I just can't get over that one. I mean, you would think, why didn't they wait till the end of the year to make this transition?
Right.
Why didn't they make sure everybody got the right amounts of money, and then over the holiday week or something, like the week before New Year's, roll out this change starting January 1, but give everybody and take more time to get it right and to staff it up and have enough people to answer phones. I mean, they should have known that this was going to jack people up.
Especially if they're going to reduce the payout to an annuitant every month. If it's more, maybe it's okay. But if it's less, and these people are living on fixed income, it's a fail.
A total fail.
Yep.
Anyways, are you going to get that, or you want to read the next one?
Sorry, Preston, we can't take your phone call right now. We're on the air. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about scams, okay? Beware of scams involving jobs, stimulus checks, and tax refunds, the IRS warns. The IRS is warning taxpayers to look out for scams involving fake job offers, tax refunds, and pandemic-era benefits such as a stimulus check, as criminals continue to use this ongoing health crisis to steal cash and data.
I had an email this week. I think I told you.
I've actually got it right here.
Oh, you got it in there?
Yep.
About telling me that we could apply for more PPP and EIDL money.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and this just shows you it's a scam, and it says, according to public records made available by the U.S. federal government on businesses who develop or receive funds through the Payment Protection Program, Rosenberg Financial Group was approved for dollars on. We didn't apply for it, nor did we receive any. Right. So there's your first
They're just going
sign.
through a database, hoping that people click on the link.
That's right.
all they're trying to do is get you to click on the link and download malware.
Yep. Let's see here. Scammers continue to use the pandemic as their device to scare and confuse potential victims, and that's according to the IRS Commissioner Chuck Redding. Redding urged Americans to be skeptical of suspicious calls, texts, and emails promising non-existent benefits, and suggests people should verify the information on a trusted government website. That's an oxymoron, such as irs.gov. The Federal Reserve has issued all 3 authorized rounds of stimulus checks, formerly known as the EIP, or Economic Impact Payments, and most eligible people already received their checks according to the IRS. But thieves are still using the stimulus checks to lure victims in. People missing a stimulus payment were able to claim a recovery rebate credit for the remainder of their 2020 or 21 tax returns, but they still may be waiting for their refund. As of May 20th, the IRS has issued 96 million refunds, and there's a lot more to go. The easiest way to check the status of your refund, though, is through Where's My Refund online tool, or by clicking the IRS To Go app.
And this is number 2.
Yes, and number 2. Any text messages from random incoming phone calls or emails inquiring about bank account information, requesting recipients to click on a link or verify data should be considered suspicious and deleted without opening, the IRS said. This includes not just stimulus payments, but tax refunds and other common issues. The IRS is not going to email you.
They don't ever.
They
send you paper mail.
Yep.
Same with Social Security. They're not going to email you either.
That's right. There have been also fake job offers posted on social media enticing people to
oh my gosh,
to share their personal information, according to the IRS. This creates a tax risk because criminals can use the data to file fraudulent tax returns in the victim's name.
And we had that happen to us years ago. Somebody got into the base
They stole the
database.
alpha roster.
Yeah, they stole that, and so they filed a tax return in our name, and we were expecting a refund, and we didn't get the refund, and I kept checking on it, and it wasn't happening. And then I checked it, and it said that I can't remember.
They said that you needed to call the audit department, and then you found out that
somebody else had filed for us.
They said that we had filed twice.
Yes,
and we said no, we didn't. So it took us a
year to get our
fighting,
refund,
but we didn't get it. What we had is a credit for the next tax return. So anyway, job openings in April were near all-time highs amid historic demand for workers. Scammers also took advantage of the mass unemployment during the pandemic by using stolen personal data to file jobless benefits in others' names. Taxpayers who got a 1099-G, which is a statement of receipt of certain government payments form detailing benefits that they didn't receive, should contact their appropriate state agency for a corrected form. The IRS said, the state will issue an amended tax form and update the record with the IRS on your behalf, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Now, I will tell you, if that happened to you and you're going to be dealing with the IRS or other government agencies, keep records of everything you do and who you speak with. But you know, in the show prior to ours, there was a gentleman on there talking about Amazon fraud and the scammers are and we talked about this 2 weeks ago about how real some of these emails that you get look. So if it looks like it's coming from Amazon, and the one that I talked about was from Best Buy, go directly to the source. Don't click on anything. Just go directly to the source. Anyway.
So if protect your benefits, beat pension poachers to the punch. If you received a suspicious call from an organization claiming to represent or have affiliation with the VA, they might be just, I can't read what you wrote on here. Did the caller guarantee a lucrative payout for your disability compensation or pension claim for a small fee? If so, you may be a target of a scam. Recently, VA has seen an increase of fraudsters and non-accredited representatives who are targeting the pension benefits of elderly veterans, their dependents, and survivors. Pension poaching is the financial exploitation by an advisor who profits by artificially qualifying a claimant for VA pension benefits. The scheme often involves financial maneuvers such as advising claimants to hide their assets in trusts or annuity products, sometimes resulting in lost investments and lucrative fees paid to the advisor. Pension poaching is rapidly evolving as a preferred method used by criminals to defraud elderly veterans, survivors, and their families. And I can see why people would want to get a lump sum, because they might be up against a desperate situation, health care spending, they might be going through lots of treatments where they need more money now, and they can't afford the treatments with the monthly payment that they're getting. I could see where they could pull this off.
But this is not just about scammers either. You might just have some unscrupulous person who's selling products that wants you to put your money into one of their products to hide the assets.
To avoid being a victim of these tactics, here are some helpful tips to remember. Be suspicious if someone offers to shift your assets around to qualify for a VA pension. You may be required to repay the benefits to the government. Never share e-benefits, va.gov, or other VA login credentials with anyone. Do not deposit VA benefits directly into a third-party bank account unless the person is court-appointed or a VA-accredited fiduciary. Remember, VA does not charge for processing a claim or requesting a processing fee. Use VA-accredited organizations to help file your claim. VA does not threaten or take adverse actions such as jail or lawsuits on claimants. So people call and tell you all this stuff, and all these things are going to happen if you don't do something. Your spidey senses should go way up.
Anytime you get a call that says we're sending the law enforcement out there, we're going to cut your power off, or any of your other utilities, that just doesn't happen that way. So you normally get several not emails, but you get notifications in the mail that you've missed a payment or whatever. So let that be your first clue. When somebody's telling you have to do something right then, break out your credit card.
Right.
Take a step back.
Good advice. So will Google go the way of Microsoft? This is from October of 2020. An unprecedented lawsuit against Google has echoes of past efforts to rein in tech giants like Microsoft and Apple. Attempts to enforce antitrust laws have left some players in the dust, while others are fighting back. The antitrust lawsuit brought that week in October by a U.S. Department of Justice against Alphabet's Google is an unprecedented challenge to the dominance of global technology giants. The suit, which alleges the firm has gained a monopoly by unlawfully paying phone manufacturers to make Google Chrome the default browser on mobile phones, is likely just the beginning. Earlier this month, a report from the U.S. House Judiciary Committee called for vast changes to U.S. antitrust laws after concluding that Google and fellow U.S. tech giants Apple, Amazon, and Facebook were abusing their market dominance. More suits against Google are also expected. The tech crackdown has gained momentum in Europe as well, and I'm going to skip that part. The DOJ versus Microsoft. In this groundbreaking 1998 case, And this is where this stuff really started. The DOJ accused computer and software firm Microsoft, and this is really something, of making it difficult for PC manufacturers and users to use web browsers other than Microsoft's Internet Explorer, which came pre-installed on all Microsoft computers. The DOJ argued that Microsoft's bundling of its web browser software with its operating system was the source of the company's wild success, and that the move amounted to an unlawful monopolization. We're talking Atlas Shrugged here. This is seriously Atlas Shrugged at its core. If you've ever read the book, you haven't read the book, you need to check it out, because the government thinks they know better than how to run a business better than a business, and they want to tear things apart.
And see, the problem with what happens with Microsoft and Google and some of these other companies, that their products are used worldwide, so they can't go some other place. Like in Atlas Shrugged, it was a mythical place that all these people went, and they didn't have to worry about the government.
That's right.
But Microsoft and Google, they have to fight back on this, because no matter where they go, even if they went to a place they were the government, they still sell their products internationally, and they're still going to be
pounded.
A target.
So Microsoft said that back to the DOJ, the two products belong together. The company went on to win an appeal on the ruling, which would have required Microsoft to break up its business into two separate entities, one for software and one for operating systems. In the end, the DOJ opted for a settlement with Microsoft that kept the company intact, with the tech company instead agreeing to share details of its computing interfaces with competitors. And I'd love to know how much they paid the DOJ in that settlement. Following the lawsuit, Microsoft ultimately fell behind other tech companies, fumbling the transition to mobile and losing to Google in the race for web browser dominance. The DOJ's new case against Google draws directly from the Microsoft case, but with a narrower focus that could have a better chance of winning an appeal. And do you want to do the next one?
Sure. Let's see. So what's Google doing? Google offers concessions to fend off U.S. antitrust lawsuit.
And this is from this week.
That's right. Tech giants offer stop short of the asset sale, which is preferred by the Justice Department antitrust enforcers. Alphabet Google has offered concessions in an attempt to head off the possible U.S. antitrust lawsuit aimed at its massive ad tech business. According to the people familiar with the matter, this is a sign that legal and regulatory pressures on the tech giant are coming to a head. As part of one offer, Google has proposed splitting parts of its business that auctions and places ads on websites and apps into a separate company under the Alphabet umbrella. That entity would potentially be valued at tens of billions of dollars, depending on what assets it donated.
It contained.
It couldn't be determined whether any offer short of asset sale would satisfy the U.S. Department of Justice, where antitrust officials have signaled a preference for a steep structural change to Google's ad tech business rather than promises to change the business practices, the people said. The Justice Department has been conducting a long-running investigations into allegations that Google abuses its role as both the broker and the auctioneer of digital advertisements to steer its business at the expense of rivals.
Isn't that what you do? You compete? You want to be the best?
Yeah, you do. And, my concern here is I can see, where there's a potential conflict of interest where, if you handle the transactions from A to Z, are you steering, are you able to put in a better price than the other people?
Of course.
Because you own the software, it's not being, if you say you're having a fair and open arm's length transaction, that's one thing. But I don't think Google's saying that. They're just able to outmaneuver everybody, and they're believing that Google is manipulating it behind the scenes. So I get that. But if they're not, have them prove it and then move on. And the regulators should stay off their backs. Let's see here. Google spokesman said in a statement, as we have said before, we have no plans to sell or exit this business. Rigorous competition in an ad technology has made online ads more relevant, reduced fees, and expanded options for publishers and advertisers, and Google has helped drive that down. In the European Union, where Google faces another ad tech investigation, Google has made an offer to settle different allegations of anti-competitive conduct related to YouTube. Some of the people familiar with the matter said. As part of that offer, Google would allow competitors to broker the sale of ads directly on the video service. Currently, the only way to buy ads on YouTube, the world's largest video sharing platform, is to use Google ad buying tools. Antitrust watchers have long awaited the second U.S. case against Google following the Justice Department's lawsuit almost 2 years ago, alleging the company used anti-competitive tactics then to maintain a dominant position in the online search. Google's willingness to offer concessions to avoid U.S. lawsuits is an evolution of the company's strategy for handling growing legal and regulatory pressures. In addition to the probes by the U.S. Justice Department, the EU, and the U.K., Google is preparing for trial in lawsuits from U.S. states led by Texas that argues that the company is running a monopoly that harmed ad industry competitors and publishers. Google is awaiting a judge's decision on the motion to dismiss the case. But I don't think they feel very hopeful on that.
Do you need to do any more of this thing, you think?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay. So I want to get to the next one. So the top 10 companies in the United States by market cap as of 2021 are Apple, $2.510 trillion US dollars, Microsoft, $2.268 trillion, Alphabet, Google, $1.933 trillion, Amazon, $1.757 trillion, Facebook, $1.069 trillion, Tesla, $736 billion, Berkshire Hathaway, $646 billion, and Nvidia, $557 billion. So it's like they're going down this list. They're going down the list of these people that make too much money, these companies, and yeah, we'll do that after this. Could the government break up Facebook? So I went on the internet and I looked at the antitrust activity of these different companies, and I'll be brief on this because you're probably getting bored. Could the government break up Facebook? The answer is don't bet on it. Antitrust experts and Wall Street analysts say the U.S. faces long odds in its battle with Facebook, predicting that a breakup of the world's largest social media company is highly unlikely. Investors seem to agree. Then the next one is, why is the government against Amazon? Amazon, as per a Reuters investigation, has been accused of anti-market practices by using data from third-party sellers on its website to determine original products it would produce. Well, guess what? Walmart does that. You go to Walmart and you're shopping for leggings to go to the gym, and there's a name brand and there's a Walmart brand, and the Walmart brand is No Boundaries and it costs less. That's the brand of shorts that I wear because they're like $10. Mm-hmm. And so, but I could buy a $20 pair of shorts that's in the rack right next to it that are made by Lee.
And you see the same thing at Kroger.
At Kroger. You have tortillas that are made by whatever company, and then you have the knockoff Kroger tortilla that is the same, made by the same exact company, but because it's made for Kroger and they don't have to advertise it, it's just on a shelf, you pay less for it. And so everyone does this. Everyone looks out there at what people are buying and does their own version of it at a cheap Publix. Everyone, Walgreens.
And they don't do that just at the big stores either. Small businesses do that. I mean, it's just a way that if you know what the trends are, that's what you do. You go where the money's at.
Right. So here's one from December 2nd, 2021. The Federal Trade Commission today sued to block U.S. chip supplier NVIDIA Corporation's $40 billion acquisition of UK chip design provider ARM Ltd. The proposed vertical deal would give one of the largest chip companies control over the computing technology and designs that rival firms rely on to develop their own competing chips. The FTC's complaint alleges that the combined firm would have the means and incentive to stifle innovation, next-generation technologies. You would think if they took it over that other people would start innovating to have control over their own supply. I disagree with it stifling innovation. I think competition creates innovation because you're competing against somebody that you want to beat. That's the whole point. You don't just give up. Stifle innovation, innovative next-generation technologies, including those used to run data centers and driver assistance systems in cars. So NVIDIA scrapped the deal due to this roadblock. So here's Jim Cramer's opinion of all this. He came out on October 27th of 2021. CNBC's Jim Cramer said Wednesday he opposes government efforts to break up American technology giants such as Amazon and Apple. You want to hate big tech for being too powerful, go right ahead, but I think it's insane that our government's targeting them, the Mad Money host said, referring to recent legislative proposals in Washington directed at the mega-cap tech companies. America's finally good at making something again. We should be helping these companies take over the world, not kneecapping them. And even if you despise big tech, you have to admit these companies have created more wealth than any other enterprise in the history of this great nation.
How many people are employed by them combined?
Right?
Tons.
Kramer's comments focused on the following firms: Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google parent Alphabet, and Tesla, which for years has dominated electric vehicle sales. Microsoft and Tesla recently avoided coming under serious fire from lawmakers, Kramer said. However, in general, he contends Washington is looking at these companies all wrong. Yes, they should probably face more regulation, but I think we should be aiming to create clear rules for digital commerce rather than aiming to cut them off at the knees. In any other developed country, these companies would be treated as national champions, treasures even. After living through an era where the only thing America seemed to make right was toothpaste, deodorant, diapers, soda, and movies, I'm actually proud that America dominates the tech industry.
I agree with his sentiments. I do. I think really the problem is we're using antiquated laws to regulate what people do now. And he hit the nail on the head. The regulations need to be altered.
So we missed our halftime, but I'll go ahead and do it anyways. So you've been listening to Randy and Sherri Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group, and you can call in today. The number is 478-742-0940. So upward and onward.
All right. Let's talk about people still working remotely. Concerns about safety, including public transportation, have contributed to a reluctance to go back to the office. And the problem is most pronounced in America's biggest cities. Nationally, office use hit a pandemic-era high of 44% in June, while cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, and New York have lagged behind, according to Castle Systems, which collects data on how many people swipe into an office building each day. The divide has created a sense of urgency among politicians and business leaders in these cities, where the stakes are especially high because office workers are the engine of local economies and fuel small businesses. From April 2020 to March 2021, 26,300 New York City small businesses closed permanently, according to a report the mayor released in the spring. Available office spaces in New York has grown to about 125 million square feet, up from 90 million in 2020, according to CoStar Group, which rents facilities in the Manhattan area. Let's see. One issue for workers in big cities is time spent in transit. New York, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco and Chicago have some of the nation's longest commute times, and these people are very reluctant to return to the offices. Concerns about crime and safety, including on public transportation, have contributed to urban employees' unease. In New York, major crimes, including murder, robbery, and assault, rose 7.5% from 2019 to 2021. San Francisco, there were 56 homicides in 2021 compared to 41 in 2019. While robberies and assaults both fell, let's see here. In Los Angeles, violent crimes edged up about 4% between 2019 and 2021. Companies hearing from workers that I'm still worried about COVID. Companies hearing from workers include excuses of I'm still worried about COVID. Gas prices are $5 a gallon. It's too expensive to come to work. Those are just some of the very small ones that they're getting. Nearly 2 out of every 3 workers whose jobs can be done remotely prefer a mix of remote and in-person work, according to a global survey completed in March. And 68% of the workers in North America said they would consider looking for another job if managers insisted that they return to the workplace full-time. One of the latest companies to retreat from the workplace is Yelp. The San Francisco-based review platform said, and I can see this company, mean, they can do everything they do on a computer somewhere. The San Francisco-based review platform said last month that it's closing its New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. offices, which is, these tech companies, they have more of a leg up in this.
Yes. And
we have a friend, last weekend we were at the lake, and we walk around the corner, and there's Emily sitting on in her bikini, having a conference call. And people, if they have a job that does not require them to be in the office, I get that. But I often wonder, how's that going to affect upward mobility, or do people just not care about that as much anymore, or would they just prefer to be remote?
I think upward mobility continues. Oh, we have a phone call? Welcome. You're on Your Money with Randy and Sherri.
Hello? Did you punch the button, Neil?
I don't know what happened. Beep. Call back, 478-742-0940.
Anyway.
So let's talk about, so the 3 offices, this is very interesting. So Yelp is sending everybody home to work. The 3 offices combined had less than 2% weekly average utilization.
Right.
The line between vacation and work from home has definitely blurred, he said. We've had a bit of we're going to go to Florida to see the in-laws for a week, so I'll be working remotely. People are just assuming that they can. Many employers remain reluctant to take a hard line, fearing the loss of employees when attrition has been at or near record rates for months. With the rise in remote work, companies are now competing with employers around the world, not just in here. Anywhere in the world, if you can work from anywhere, it's a game changer.
They're not saying, hey, we'd like to work from home. They're advising them that we are going to be working from home, is what they're saying.
Yes.
And we have another phone call.
Your operator.
Okay.
Something is wrong with the phone.
Something's wrong with the connection.
I tell you what, email us with your questions at support@rfmoney.com, and we'll cover your questions next week on the program. Anyways, so here's the next interesting thing. The Netherlands is poised to make work from home a legal right. As U.S. companies struggled to entice workers back to offices, the Dutch Parliament approved legislation to establish home working as a legal right, setting the Netherlands up to be one of the first countries to enshrine such flexibility in law. The legislation was adopted by the lower house of the Dutch Parliament Tuesday and will now head to the Senate for final approval. Under current Dutch law, employers may reject workers' requests to work from home without giving a reason. The new legislation forces employers to consider such requests and give a reason for denying them, which they probably have to report in writing to some government entity somewhere. In an April survey of more than 32,000 American workers by ADP, 2/3 said they would find a new job if they were required to return to the office full-time. Working from home was popular in the Netherlands before the pandemic. In 2018, 14% of employed Dutch people worked remotely, the highest rate in the EU. The country ranked number 1 in 2019 of the best European countries for so-called digital nomads, based on factors such as internet quality, cost of living, and volume for co-working spaces. And people would probably move there for this reason. The law represents an important step for workers, they say, that allows them to find a better work-life balance and reduce time spent commuting. And here's another feel-good. Stephen Van Wyberger, a member of the D66 party and the bill's co-author, said, for employers, this is a good law because a happy employee is a happy employer, which doesn't really make any sense. Some Dutch businesses said continuing to allow remote working would facilitate productivity and worker satisfaction. And it's just a different mindset. And it's just fascinating, and I wonder if this is going to start catching up globally, and if countries are going to continue to do this, and what work is going to look like in the future. I work flexibility. I mean, Shelby, I was on the phone with her yesterday, and because she works from home and she wanted to go somewhere last night, they were going camping, she got up early and she started work at 5:30 in the morning. And so she put in her hours so that she could leave earlier and go camping last night.
Now, if you could, I mean, think about these companies, how much rent they're paying every month.
Right.
I mean, most companies rent their facilities. That way someone else has the responsibility. You know, some don't, but anyway. But if you were able to get rid of all that overhead, how much more profitable could you be?
Heat, air conditioning.
Absolutely.
I mean, everything from the cleaning, everybody cleaning in the offices every day, and the trash disposal, and the copier. I mean, the paper. I mean, think about our little office and how much we spend on that space.
Yep.
It's astronomical compared to what we get.
So if you were able to say, okay, we're not going to have an office space and we're going to save all that money, you could do a big perk and say send everybody to Cabo San Lucas for one big conference for the company, and that'd be kind of fun too. So you really build some goodwill with your employees.
So do you want to talk about this next one, or do you want to skip to the Shell article?
Well, you know, we've talked about. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this one.
Okay. So the pandemic may have triggered massive layoffs as businesses shut down, but it also spawned a new labor trend, the Great Resignation. A recent Pew Research Center survey showed that the nation's so-called quit rate reached a 20-year high last November, but as fear of recessions loom, and this was written just this week, but as fear of recession looms amid mounting layoffs, how risky is it to quit your job right now? Experts say workers still have the upper hand for now. The U.S. unemployment rate has held steady at 3.6% for the last 3 months. It seems that the fear of a looming recession has not affected the resignation trend yet. Gonzalez, who's with Wallet Hub, says employees are still confident in the job market and their chances of finding better jobs. Millions of Americans continue to quit their jobs for different reasons, including finding a better workplace that offers more benefits or a higher salary, taking a sabbatical, or starting their own business. Nevertheless, layoffs and hiring freezes have made headlines in recent weeks. So who's laying off workers? Wall Street insiders are said to be bracing for major cuts at major banks. And that's because they're closing branches, and so that's just going to happen because people aren't using physical banks anymore. They're doing everything online. Elsewhere, electric vehicle maker Tesla has laid off hundreds of workers in the last few weeks amid production slowdowns. Netflix cut 450 employees in June. Coinbase, which I can't even talk about.
No, you can talk about Coinbase.
Oh, really?
But you just can't talk about what they do.
They laid off 1,100 workers. Even some healthcare firms largely immune to recession woes are wobbling. Carbon Health, which I don't know what they do, laid off some people. Meanwhile, major tech companies like Facebook and Uber have pumped the brakes on hiring. Should you quit your job now? Job opportunities grow. However, U.S. job growth continued at a brisk pace in May, fueled by hiring at bars and restaurants, even as consumers spend less amid record high inflation. Employers added 390,000 jobs in May, the Labor Department said, topping views for what they expected. Jobs numbers are expected July 8th, which they did come out this week, and they were positive again.
But one of the biggest thing about this article is that you got to be cautious because you are moving into a time where the Fed is trying to basically cause some unemployment and slow down inflation. So don't think just because you were able to job hop several times that you're going to continue to be able to do that. The biggest thing you want to be able to do is, if you want to move off to some other place, is to make sure you've got one already lined up before you make that exit.
And they say in this article the best number of jobs, there are plenty of jobs, it says, available in fields such as logistics, dining, and hospitality, which you don't make a whole lot of money in that. With the labor force participation rate at around 62%, one of the lowest rates in decades, the survey reveals employers are struggling the most to fill positions in Alaska, Kentucky, and Georgia, which is why if you drive on I-75, you'll see about 10 billboards advertising jobs. And the problem I have with them, there was a new one I tried to look at yesterday, and the print was so small I couldn't read what it said or who the company was. And it needs to just say, jobs now, how many dollars an hour, company name, phone number, like in giant letters, instead of all of these small print or pictures and all this other junk.
Stop trying to put a big URL up there.
And the best one, I think I've mentioned it before, is the Caterpillar one, where you can go there and learn to be a mechanic without going to mechanic school, right out of high school.
And they'll pay you a $5,000. They used to be paying a $5,000 signing bonus or the equivalent in tools.
In PepsiCo, Hawkinsville, Georgia, that giant Frito plant, they're hiring kids right out of high school to teach them how to run robotics and fix robotic and automation equipment. So if you have a young kid and they're graduating from high school and they don't know what they want to be, they don't have to go to community college even right now. They don't have to go to college. They could go to one of these companies and apply and get into a program where they could work and actually learn a trade. I mean, there's just desperation for electricians, construction. I mean, I saw the concrete company was demand. They said you don't have to have any experience, just apply now.
And a lot of times people think that those jobs don't pay much, but they do.
They're paying $15 to $18 an hour for somebody that doesn't have any background or training.
Right, and they're just starting. But I mean, on the other end of it, after they're in it and they've got experience and the skills to go with it, the pay is pretty decent.
Well, gosh, a Caterpillar, all you have to do is stay there for 2 years, and then you can leave, and you can take your $5,000 tool, whatever that's called.
Right, toolbox,
and with all your tools, and you can take them and go somewhere else, and now you're all of a sudden a mechanic, and you could get paid much more.
Right.
And you'll have 2 years of experience in learning and training. The opportunities right now are just insane for young people to become whatever they want to be without going into student loan debt.
That's right. Let's cover one more article, Sherri, before we have to go.
Okay.
Let's talk about energy and Shell. Let's see. Shell wants to build the largest renewable hydrogen energy plant in Europe. Energy giants are seeing the writing on the wall when it comes to clean energy, so they're making adjustments as they should. Shell, one of the largest energy companies in the world, wants to build a massive hydrogen energy plant at one of its refineries in the Netherlands. The plant, also called an electrolyzer, will generate 60,000 kilograms of renewable hydrogen energy every day using the process called electrolysis, which is when the water molecules are split into hydrogen and oxygen to be used as energy. They expect this plant to be operational in 2025.
Why aren't we building one of these?
We should be. Even better, probably because the U.S. regulators are going to sue them. Even better, the hydrogen that is produced will be green hydrogen. That means the electrolyzer is powered by wind or solar energy. And Shell isn't the only oil and gas giant seeing this opportunity in green hydrogen right now. BP recently took a 40% stake in a green energy plant that focuses on hydrogen power, and Siemens Energy is setting up a joint venture to build more green hydrogen electrolyzers across Europe. Market research firm PwC predicts steady, moderate growth for hydrogen energy through 2030 before adoption really takes off. An investment firm, Goldman Sachs, has even predicted that hydrogen could be $1 trillion a year and make up 15% of the global energy generated by 2050. Clearly, there's plenty of room for growth in this megatrend, and I think we'll just have to keep our eyes open.
I'm going to do some more research on this and see if anybody here in the United States is doing this, because it's extremely smart.
How much time we got left, Neil?
Probably a minute.
1 minute.
So we're at the end of the show. You've been listening to Randy and Sherri Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins, and the main thing we do as financial advisors is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you can't listen live, you can always visit our website, retirerelax.com, and listen to the recordings and check out our special reports. I have a brand new special report. It's called Your Money and Your Memory, and it is about people with dementia and how careful you need to be in helping them with their finances. It's a really big deal, so check that out if you have someone in your family with dementia. We offer complimentary consultations to help you plan for a successful retirement. And we also provide educational seminars in the community. I'm finally getting out. I have a speaking engagement next week. I have another one the following week that I'm really excited about. And so I can come to your church or your club or your group if you need a speaker. And the most popular thing that I talk about is my life book, which is estate planning, because there's a lot of things that people don't understand that they need to get done. And I want everybody to get organized. So anyways, give us a call at the office if you want, 478-922-8100, and visit retirerelax.com.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. No strategy can assure a profit against loss. Rosenberg Financial Group is located at 2517 Moody Road, Warner Robins, Georgia 31088, and can be reached at 478-922-8100.